Chapter 18. The Caemlyn Road. It took them 2 days to reach the hills of Ashbar that Rand remembered seeing on the mayor's map. On the 3rd day, Nynaeve tried to get Moraine to drink some flatworm tea and andalay root for her exhaustion, to clear her head and soothe the muscle burn of everyone else, but Lan wouldn't allow a fire to make it. Perrin remarked that the road winds around the hills to Whitebridge, the long way round. Why don't they cut across country? Moraine said the hills would slow them down, while Lan pointed out the lack of civilization is due to unseen danger. They must get to Whitebridge, as it has the only bridge across the River Arenal, south of Maradon in Saldea. Tom snorted and asked, "What's to stop them having someone or something waiting at Whitebridge?" A horn blast came from the west, chilling Rand. Lan stared down the road and said, "Nothing stops them, Gleeman. We must trust to the light and luck, but for now we know for certain that Trollocs are behind us." They scrambled to their horses, speeded on by another blast, while Lan and Moraine exchanged a look. As he vaulted to Mandab's saddle, Lan told her, "Keep them moving, Moraine Sedai. I will return as soon as possible. You will know if I fail." Another horn blasted as he galloped back toward the west, and Moraine softly said, "The light go with you, last Lord of the Seven Towers." She got the others heading eastward, and Lan is lost to sight. Rand wondered what she'd called Lan, and saw Tom looking speculative. The horns kept calling out, closer and closer each time, and Nynaeve asked if they could go any faster. Moraine shook her head and said they need to be cautious. They have no idea what's ahead. The horns may be trying to scare them into rushing onwards. When the horns were 5 miles back, Lan galloped up to join them and they all reined in. He told Moraine, "At least 3 fists of Trollocs, maybe 5, each led by a half-man." Egwene was worried that Lan could have been seen and followed, until Nynaeve reassured her that Lan's tracking skills are too good for him to be seen. Moraine stunned the group by explaining that up to 500 Trollocs are behind them, and Lan added that they'll be on them within the hour. Moraine mused to herself, "If they had that many before, why not use them at Emond's Field? If they didn't have them then, where did the extra come from?" Lan told her that they're spread out to drive them forwards. The horns rang out again, this time answered by horns from ahead. Nynaeve demanded, "Where do they go now?" Moraine mused again, about barren hills to the south with no way to cross the Arenal or river traffic, whilst north they may come across a trading vessel if the ice in Maradon has broken by now. Lan pointed out that there's a place the Trollocs won't go, but Moraine immediately said no, then drew him into a private conversation. The horns kept calling and Tom growled that they're trying to frighten them into panicking. Rand could see Egwene looking more and more scared, so he moved Cloud closer to reassure her. Moraine announced that they'll go north and they start riding. It was only so fast that they could move in the undergrowth and trees, whilst also navigating the hills. The horns kept getting closer and more frequent now, only 2 miles away, maybe less, Rand thought. Lan began to get uneasy, looking in every direction, until he told them there were Trollocs nearby. He thinks they're scouts sent ahead of the main force. If they come across them, they must stay close to him and keep going in the same direction. Tom cursed while Nynaeve got Egwene closer to her, and the boys started checking every direction, and the horns still got closer. As they topped the next hill, they looked down to see a column of Trollocs carrying catch-poles with rope or hooks, and in their midst was a Fade. The Myrddraal hesitated when it spotted the humans, then pulled free its sword and the Trollocs scrambled toward them. Lan reminded them to stay with him, then sword held up, charged down the hill shouting, "For the 7 Towers!" Rand gulped, then pulled his heron-marked sword and charged after him, shouting, "Manetherin! Manetherin!" echoed by Perrin. Matt shouted, "Carayan Caldazar! Carayan Elisander! Al-Elisander!" Lan headed directly to the Myrddraal, his blade meeting the black Thakandar steel with a flash of blue light. The beast swarmed around the humans, poles trying to pull them from their horses. Rand slashed at anything that came near him, and desperately tried to keep Egwene in sight, worried that she only had her dagger for protection. He spotted her with Nynaeve, keeping close to Moraine, who hurled fireballs at the Trollocs. A catchpole snagged Rand's shoulder, almost pulling him from Cloud, and he clung to the pommel of his saddle. He saw Perrin being grabbed by 3 Trollocs until suddenly they dropped to the ground, screaming and writhing. Turning, he spotted the Fade riding around headless, black swords still waving, and Tom shouted that it won't die until nightfall. Lan called for them to ride. More are coming. Matt pulled a rope from around his neck. Surprisingly, he was the only one unhorsed. When they reached the next hill, the one behind them was covered in trollocs and free fades, making Ran's heart sink. Moraine dismounted and pulled out her angrial, stabbing the earth with her staff. The ground heaved and groaned, making the horses dance. Waves of earth rolled toward the beasts, throwing them into heaps. But despite that, the murderer kept riding implacably toward the group. Moraine switched to a 20-foot wall of flames erupting from the ground, creating a barrier between them. "Blood and ashes," Matt whispered, as Moraine staggered and Lan caught her. He told them they must go while it lasts. They galloped north, Moraine swaying in her saddle as she told them she'll be all right soon. She's not strong when it comes to working with earth and fire. Nynaeve gave her a packet of herbs which the Aes Sedai swallowed, making the wisdom look satisfied. Ran pondered his first battle. He could barely remember half of it, only the heat and fear standing out in his mind. They paused as Lan and Moraine discussed something, heads close together, seeming to argue. Egwene asked the boys about their battle cries, and Ran told her that they'd heard Mat repeat the tale of Manetheren, and felt they needed to shout something. Perrin added that they were their ancestors, and it felt right. Egwene asked Mat about his, and he claimed not to remember. Egwene said she felt like she almost understood it, and Moraine appeared, repeating Mat's call. She then translated it as, "For the honour of the Red Eagle, for the honour of the Rose of the Sun, the Rose of the Sun." She told them it was an ancient old-tongue battle cry of Manetheren, and added, "The blood of Ared's line is still strong in the Two Rivers. The old blood still sings." Mat and Egwene looked at each other wide-eyed. Mat wondered if Mat was a descendant of the kings of Manetheren, and the true target of the Dark One. He felt ashamed, but saw the other boys were thinking the same thing. Tom remarked on never hearing the like of it before, and any other time he'd be making a story out of it. Lan announced that the Fades had breached the fire and told Moraine, "You're not strong enough for what you intended. Not yet. Not without rest. Neither Trollocs or Fades will enter that place." Moraine sighed and acquiesced to whatever he was suggesting. She told the group to huddle close and swung her staff over their heads several times. Ran felt a tingle whenever it passed over him, making him flinch. She pointed her staff to the west, and a breeze shot out ahead like an invisible whirlwind. She told them that the Trollocs will believe their tracks and scent lead to the west. The murderer will see through it eventually, but it will give them time to escape. Egwene remarked that the staff is powerful, making Moraine chide her that items do not have the power, only people. Her staff is only an aid to concentration. Lan warned them to keep quiet and not give away their true position, and led them north. They took routes over rock and hard ground to avoid leaving any tracks, Lan in the rear to remove any trace they left. Nynaeve rode next to the Aes Sedai, who was swaying again, clearly exhausted, and the Wisdom's concern battled her dislike of the woman. Rand almost wished the horns would start again, so they'd know they were far away and not ahead of them. Rand thought he saw a cliff appear before them, and wondered how they'd traverse it. Then he noticed it was actually a massive wall covered in vines, 10 times higher than Baerlon's walls. The boys noted that what must be a city appeared abandoned, and Egwene wondered what it was called, saying she'd never seen it on her father's map. It was called Aredal, Moraine told them. During the Trolloc War it was an ally of Manetheren. Later Aredal died, and it became known by another name. Mat asked what, but is ignored as Lan led them through the old gate, saying the Trollocs have discovered that the trail they follow is false. Mat repeated the question, and Moraine responded, "Shadar Lagoth. It is called Shadar Lagoth."
Thanks for listening. Please like, share and subscribe and help get a new channel off the ground. Thank you.